Richard Harrington was a man built by routine. Wake at 5:30, gym at 6, protein shake at 6:45, news headlines at 7, chauffeur at 8, the same tailored charcoal suit, the same silk tie, the same expression, calm, distant, untouchable. Over 30 years, those habits had turned a son of a struggling contractor into one of the most powerful real estate moguls in the United States. People admired him. People feared him. People rarely knew him. As Richard walked through the lobby, his eyes were locked on his phone, scrolling through emails about acquisitions, zoning approvals, and investor calls. His footsteps echoed sharply, a rhythm everyone in the building recognized. Conversations lowered when he passed. Spines straightened. Smiles appeared suddenly, nervously. Near the reception desk stood a man who didn't fit the picture. He was black, mid-40s perhaps, wearing a brown jacket that had seen better winters. His jeans were clean but faded, his boots scuffed by long walks on salted sidewalks. He held a plain manila envelope in both hands, gripping it as if it contained something fragile, or important. His eyes moved around the lobby with quiet alertness, taking in the luxury without awe, without resentment. He was simply waiting. Richard noticed him instantly, not because the man was loud, not because he was causing trouble, but because he was out of place. A familiar tightening crept into Richard's chest. He didn't analyze it. He never did. His mind made decisions before thought could catch up. Years of deals, betrayals, and losses had trained him to judge quickly. Efficiently, ruthlessly. Another habit. As Richard drew closer, the man took a small step forward. "Excuse me, sir," the man said, his voice calm, respectful. "I'm looking for Mr. Harrington." Richard stopped. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted his gaze from the phone and looked at the man for the first time. His eyes scanned the jacket, the boots, the envelope. In a split second, his brain told him a story: wrong building, wrong person, potential problem. Richard exhaled through his nose. "This is a private building," he said flatly. "Do you have business here?" "Yes," the man replied without hesitation. "I have an appointment." Richard didn't ask for details. He didn't check his calendar. He didn't wonder if his assistant might have scheduled something. He waved his hand dismissively. Reception shouldn't be letting people wander in like this. The receptionist, a young woman named Emily, stiffened. "Sir," he said. "I didn't ask," Richard snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "We don't allow loitering. It makes tenants uncomfortable." The word loitering hung heavy in the air. The man straightened his shoulders. "Sir, I assure you, I'm not." "Security," Richard said loudly, turning slightly away as if the matter were already resolved. Two guards approached, their expressions professional but uneasy. They had seen scenes like this before. It was always easier not to intervene. Easier to follow orders. "Sir," one guard said to the man, "we'll need you to step outside." The man looked from the guard to Richard. His eyes were steady, thoughtful, not angry. "I came a long way for this," he said quietly. "I believe what I have could help you." Richard scoffed. "Everyone believes that." A few employees nearby pretended to check their phones. One man shifted uncomfortably. A woman bit her lip. No one spoke. Silence, too, was a habit. As the guards gently guided him toward the doors, the man did not resist. He walked with dignity, holding onto the envelope as if it were a piece of himself. Just before exiting, he stopped and turned. For the first time, Richard really looked at his face. There was no pleading there. No humiliation, only disappointment, deep, human, and unsettling. "I hope one day," the man said softly, "you learn to see people before judging them." The words weren't loud. They didn't accuse. But they landed. The glass doors closed behind him with a final hiss. Richard stood still for half a second longer than usual. Then his phone buzzed. An investor from Chicago. A zoning approval update. A problem that needed fixing. The moment slipped away. "Emily," Richard said, already walking toward the elevators, "don't let that happen again." "Yes, sir," she replied quietly. As the elevator doors closed, Richard stared at his reflection in the mirrored walls. Perfect suit, perfect posture, perfect control. He told himself he had done the right thing. He always did. Thick, iron gray clouds rolled low, pressing down on the city as rain hammered rooftops and streets without mercy. Sirens wailed in the distance. News helicopters hovered above flooded neighborhoods, their cameras capturing chaos that would soon dominate national headlines. Inside the upper floor of Harrington Tower, panic had replaced polish. Phones rang non-stop. Assistants rushed through corridors clutching tablets and files. On the massive screen in the emergency conference room, satellite images showed water swallowing roads around Riverfront Heights, Richard Harrington's most ambitious luxury housing project. $200 million. Years of reputation, all at risk. This doesn't make sense. One engineer shouted. The foundation was designed to withstand this level of rainfall. It's not the rain, another replied. It's the groundwater pressure. Something's wrong beneath the surface. Richard stood at the head of the table, fists clenched, jaw tight. He had survived market crashes, lawsuits, betrayals, but this felt different. This felt like losing control. Fix it, he barked. I don't care how. Bring me someone who knows. A city official's voice came through the speakerphone. Mr. Harrington, we've assigned a specialist. He's already in the building. Richard didn't hesitate. Send him in. Now. The door opened. For a split second, no one spoke. Richard looked up, and the world tilted. The man who entered the room was calm, composed, confident. He wore a navy blue suit, perfectly pressed. His posture was upright, his gaze steady. Under his arm was a leather folder. It was him, the man from the lobby. The room buzzed with subtle confusion, but Richard heard nothing except the pounding of his own heartbeat. Good afternoon, the man said evenly, placing his folder on the table. My name is Dr. Marcus Hill. I'm a civil engineer specializing in flood-resistant urban infrastructure. Richard's mouth went dry. Dr. Hill clicked a remote. The screen changed instantly, blueprints, simulations, water flow models. His voice was firm, clear, commanding. Your project is fighting nature instead of working with it, Marcus said. You built walls where channels were needed. Water doesn't stop, it remembers its path. The room leaned in. Marcus moved with precision, pointing to data, rotating 3D models. This section here, he paused, tapping the screen, is where the failure begins. Not because of poor materials, but because of a flawed assumption. Engineers exchanged stunned looks. This redesign, Marcus continued, will redirect pressure, stabilize the foundation, and prevent future collapse, even under worse conditions than this storm. Silence followed. Then, that would save the project, someone whispered. Richard stared at the screen, then at Marcus. The same man he had dismissed. The same man he hadn't even listened to. The meeting ended quickly after that. Solutions were approved, timelines adjusted, hope returned. One by one, people filed out. Only Richard and Marcus remained. The city thundered outside. Richard stood slowly, the weight of the moment pressing on him harder than any financial loss ever had. You came to see me, Richard said quietly, and I didn't let you speak. Marcus met his eyes. You made a judgment. Richard swallowed. I was wrong. For the first time in decades, the words didn't feel like weakness. Marcus opened his folder and placed the manila envelope on the table, the same one from the lobby. That day, he said calmly, I wasn't asking for money. I was offering insight. I believe expertise means nothing if it isn't used to help. Richard looked at the envelope as if it were a mirror. I built my life on habits, Richard said slowly. Speed, control, assumptions. Marcus nodded. Habits are powerful, but unchecked, they become blindfolds. Richard extended his hand, his voice low but sincere. Thank you, for still showing up. Marcus shook it firmly. Change doesn't start with comfort. It starts with awareness. Months later, Riverfront Heights reopened, stronger, safer, redesigned. But the real transformation wasn't concrete or steel. Every morning at 8:30, Richard Harrington still walked through his lobby.